Your role is no longer essential. Those words were like knives cutting into my flesh. I stood frozen in the executive conference room of Echelon Dynamics, a company I had helped build out of a failing logistics startup 19 years ago. The long oak table, the custom acoustic paneling, the skyline view of Portland, everything I had fought for suddenly felt like a stage for my humiliation. My name is Jada Knox. I'm 46, and until 9:14 a.m. this morning, I was the chief strategy officer of Echelon. I scanned the board members, men and women whose careers I'd rescued more times than I could count. People who once called me at midnight, begging for help with quarterly failures. Who sent me photos of their kids graduating. Who used to introduce me as the backbone of this company. Now, they stared at the table, except Gerald Whitford, the CEO. His expression was a mask utterly emotionless, but the faint upward pull at one corner of his mouth betrayed something cruelly unmistakable, not sorrow, but satisfaction, a quiet, self-satisfied pleasure in watching this moment unfold. He cleared his throat. "We're transitioning leadership," he said smoothly. "Elena will be taking over your role effective immediately." Elena Whitford, his daughter-in-law, 29 years old, hired 10 months ago. Her biggest achievement so far had been reorganizing a filing system wrong twice. That's quite a decision. I managed. When exactly did the board vote on this silence thick enough to choke on? Gerald finally said. Last night. Emergency session. One I was not invited to. He slid a thick envelope toward me. HR has your severance package. We're being generous. Jada. Generous. After 19 years of giving up weekends, family gatherings, holidays, pieces of myself I'll never get back. I didn't touch the envelope. I stood slowly, feeling the tremor under my ribs, but keeping my face unreadable. I'll clear out my office. I said, no rush. Gerald replied, security will assist you. Security? As if I were a threat. As if I hadn't been the one keeping this place alive. I turned, walked toward the door, and just as I touched the handle, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered, and everything changed. The voice on the other end didn't bother with introductions. Jada Knox, a woman said, crisp and certain. I heard what happened. Meet me today, for a heartbeat. I couldn't speak. Who is this Marisol Drake? She replied, and just like that, my pulse spiked. CEO of North Star Freight Systems, Echelon's largest competitor. The woman Gerald privately referred to as the rattlesnake in heels, the same woman whose bidding wars had cost us 3 major clients these past 2 years. And she was calling me. How did you news travels? She cut in. Especially when a company makes a catastrophically stupid decision. I swallowed hard. And why exactly do you want to meet me? Because I know talent when I see it. And because your CEO just handed me an opportunity I've been waiting 6 years for. A pause. The solace room at the Halden Hotel. 1 hour. Don't bring anyone. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. The office suddenly tilting around me. Security wasn't due for another 20 minutes. That gave me enough time to gather my things, my life, before the escort to the elevator. I grabbed a cardboard box from the supply closet. 19 years of loyalty collapsed into a dozen objects, my nameplate, 3 industry awards, a ceramic mug my niece painted at age 4, a binder full of handwritten notes I never had the heart to digitize, and finally, a small potted succulent I barely watered, but somehow never died. It all felt absurdly small. A soft knock pulled me from the spiral. Jada. It was Harper Lynn, my senior analyst of 7 years. Her eyes were red. They already reassigned me to Elena. She whispered. They didn't even let me finish my morning report. I forced a breath. Take the reassignment. Harper. She shook her head violently. I don't want to work for someone who couldn't explain the difference between gross margin and net margin if her life depended on it. I managed the faintest smile. You have student loans. Stability matters. Don't burn bridges because of me. But they lied about you. Harper said in a cracking voice. They're saying you mishandled the Ridgeway expansion, that the cost overruns were your fault. I froze. Ridgeway. The expansion that I personally rescued after Elena miscalculated the warehouse capacity and ordered equipment that didn't fit through the doors. I felt the bitterness gather like iron on my tongue. Let them talk, I said quietly. The truth lasts longer than rumors. She nodded, defeated, and slipped out. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A message from security escort, arriving in 10 minutes. Of course! 980 weeks I had given this company, and I was leaving under surveillance. I lifted the box, steadied my shoulders, and stepped into the hallway. Eyes tracked me from behind monitors. Conversations dying mid-sentence. People shifting, calculating, aligning themselves with whoever held power now. As I made my way toward the elevators, one thought crystallized. They weren't just firing me. They were rewriting the story to justify it. And that meant only one thing. They had no idea what was coming next. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and the two security officers stepped out, Callum Price and Victor Reyes. I knew them both. I hired Callum myself when he was still working night shifts to pay for his EMT certification exams. Now he couldn't even meet my eyes. Ms. Knox, he said quietly, we're here to escort you to the lobby. Ms. Knox, not Jada, not boss. A title with distance. I nodded, keeping my grip firm on the cardboard box. Lead the way. As we began walking, something unexpected happened. People stood, not openly, not dramatically, but subtly. Chairs shifting, screens dimming, a silence gathering in pockets across the floor. I recognized it instantly, shame. The kind born from watching a firing, is wrong but doing nothing about it. I passed the analytics pod, then supply chain, then client relations. Departments I'd built from scratch, every workflow, every protocol, every hire meticulously chosen. And now, these same departments were being offered to the CEO's daughter-in-law like party favors. When we reached the lobby, Callum finally spoke. I'm sorry, he murmured. I inhaled slowly. It's just a job. Callum, he shook his head. Not to you, never to you. And that nearly cracked something inside me. But before I could reply, the glass doors swooshed open and a familiar voice echoed across the marble floor. You didn't deserve this. Jada. I turned. Owen Hale, Echelon's CFO. His tie was crooked, and he looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 hours. Owen, my voice wavered. He approached, lowering his voice. They blindsided me too. Gerald told the board you were obstructing progress, that you were sabotaging the Ridgeway expansion to make Elena look incompetent. I blinked. Sabotaging, I saved Ridgeway. I know, he whispered. Everyone knows. But Elena, he paused, jaw tightening. She told Gerald you refused to train her, that you withheld documents, that you were territorial and emotionally volatile. Emotionally volatile, the corporate kill shot for any woman over 35. I steadied the box on my hip. Let me guess. They presented evidence. Owen exhaled, fabricated email chains, selective screenshots, the kind of thing that looks legitimate unless you were actually there. A familiar numbness spread through me. So that was the strategy: rewrite the narrative, invalidate the loyalty, erase the contribution. Typical. Jada. Owen stepped closer, lowering his voice. Elena met with the board weeks ago. This has been planned for a while. Of course it was. Nepotism isn't spontaneous. It's engineered. Before I could respond, Callum cleared his throat gently. Ms. Knox, we need to continue. I lifted my chin. It's fine. Owen's eyes glassed with a regret that came too late, as I walked out of the building for the last time. The spring air hit me like a truth I wasn't ready to face. 19 years, gone. But the moment my shoes touched the sidewalk, my phone buzzed again. Marisol Drake. 1 hour, don't be late. And for the first time that morning, I felt the faint spark of something dangerous. Hope. If you see anything unusual here, comment I see it. The Halden Hotel rose from the cityscape like a monument to people who never tasted failure. Its glass facade glittered in the late afternoon sun, as if it had never known disappointment or betrayal, unlike me. I arrived 10 minutes early. The doorman greeted me with a polished smile, unaware that the woman stepping through the revolving doors had just been erased from her own company. The lobby smelled of sandalwood and citrus, the kind of fragrance meant to make people forget their problems as long as they stayed inside. I didn't forget mine. The solace room was tucked behind a wall of frosted glass, lit with soft amber tones designed to soothe. It didn't soothe me, not today. Inside, Marisol Drake sat at a corner table, perfectly composed in a navy suit that probably cost more than my first car. Her posture radiated control, shoulders relaxed, chin lifted. A woman who had never once doubted her place at the table. She glanced up the moment she sensed me. "Jada Knox," she said with a small, knowing smile. "Sit. No pleasantries, no preamble. Just power." I slid into the chair across from her, setting my small cardboard box at my feet like a trophy of everything I'd lost. "You look calmer than I expected," Marisol observed, studying me. "Most people cry for a week after a betrayal like yours." I exhaled slowly. "I don't have a week." "Good," she said. "Because neither do I." A server appeared, placing a jasmine tea in front of her and water in front of me. Marisol didn't touch her drink. "Let me be direct," she said. "I've watched Echelon mishandle your talent for years, but replacing you with the CEO's inexperienced daughter-in-law." She leaned back, disgust twisting lightly at her mouth. "That level of stupidity is rare, even for Gerald." My jaw tightened. "I don't know what he promised the board." "But, oh, I do," Marisol interrupted. "He told them you were blocking innovation, that you were a strategic obstacle." She made air quotes with a perfectly manicured hand, and Elena supported his claims passionately. "Apparently, you refused to mentor her." The laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "I sent her 15 training decks. She didn't open a single one." Marisol smiled. "I know. We have mutual contacts." I blinked. "You were watching me for months," she confirmed, "waiting to see if Gerald was foolish enough to let you slip through his fingers." She folded her hands, eyes sharpening with intent. "Jada! I don't want to hire you." A pause. "I want to partner with you." My breath caught. Marisol continued, voice steady as steel. "I want you to help me secure the Nolan distribution contract, the one Echelon has renewed for 9 consecutive years. It's worth $42 million annually, and you're the one who built that relationship." I leaned forward slowly. "Marisol, that contract is the backbone of Echelon's logistics profits. And soon." She murmured. "It won't be." The implications unraveled inside me. She wasn't offering a job. She was offering a seismic shift, a chance to realign the balance of power in an industry I helped build. "Why me?" I asked. Marisol smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because you're the only person Gerald fears losing," she said. "And now he's already lost you." My pulse thundered. This wasn't a meeting. It was the beginning of a war. There was something in the back that no one expected. For a long moment, I simply stared at Marisol, unsure whether to breathe or brace. A partnership, not employment, not a consulting contract, a partnership. She wasn't offering a lifeline. She was offering a throne. But I had spent 19 years choosing humility over ambition, loyalty over self-preservation. And look where it landed me, standing outside my own career, clutching a cardboard box. So, instead of answering, I asked the only question that mattered. "What exactly are you proposing?" Marisol's eyes gleamed, satisfied that I'd skipped denial and gone straight to engagement. "The Nolan distribution contract is up for review in 8 weeks," she said. "Echelon thinks they'll renew without question. mostly because you've always handled the negotiations flawlessly. I felt that sting. It wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder they needed me far more than they ever admitted. Marisol continued. North Star wants that contract. With it, we'll surpass Echelon in market influence for the first time in 15 years. And you, she pointed subtly toward me, are the person Nolan trusts most? I leaned back. And you think I can walk in and convince them to jump ship? You don't need to convince them, she replied. You just need to show them what Echelon looks like without you. The cracks are already forming. She slid a slim tablet across the table. On the screen, internal reports, workflow delays, client complaints, warehouse misrouting, all dated within the last 7 hours. My brows knit. How did you get these? Marisol gave a delicate shrug. Let's just say, some people inside Echelon are suddenly concerned about the company's future and about who's running it. Translation, the ship was sinking, and people were already jumping. I looked up. What if Gerald goes after me legally? Professionally, let him. She said calmly, your non-compete only stops you from working directly for a competitor's payroll, but nothing prevents you from independent consulting, especially for companies evaluating multiple vendors. She tapped the tablet. The Nolans will be looking at all 3 major logistics providers. If you consult for them, Echelon can't legally interfere. Smart, powerful, impeccably designed. But why offer me partnership? I asked quietly. Why not just bring me on as an executive? Marisol's gaze sharpened. Because executives can be replaced. A beat. Partners can't. The words hit me harder than the firing had. No one at Echelon ever wanted me irreplaceable, only useful. Marisol wanted me foundational. I folded my hands, grounding myself. If I agree, I need autonomy, my own team, full authority over operational strategies. You'll have it, and visibility. I'm not working in shadows. You won't. And if this fails, it won't, she said simply. But if it does, you'll walk away with a 2-year financial safeguard. I don't gamble with the talent I value. I inhaled slowly. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. And for the first time since 9:14 a.m. A new thought surfaced. Maybe losing Echelon wasn't the end. Maybe it was the reset I never allowed myself to take. I left the Halden Hotel, feeling like I was walking through a world I no longer recognized, lighter in some places, heavier in others. The city buzzed around me, cars weaving through the late-day traffic, cyclists ringing bells, strangers laughing. Life continued. Oblivious to the fact that mine had cracked open and rearranged itself in the span of a single afternoon. I didn't drive home. I drove to Riverfront Lookout, the one place I always escaped to when Echelon drowned me. From its edge, the skyline stretched in 2 directions, Echelon's headquarters to the north, North Star's campus to the south. 2 futures, one past. I stood between them, the wind tugging at my blazer. My phone buzzed. A message from Harper. Elena just asked me where the Ridgeway blueprints are. She doesn't even know they're digital. Another buzz. Owen this time. Board asked Gerald why he rushed your termination. He dodged the question. People are uneasy. Then a third buzz from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Jada? This is Randall Nolan. Could you call me when you're available? My breath stalled. Randall Nolan, the founder, the man whose signature alone determined the contract Marisol wanted. He never called anyone personally. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The consequences of Gerald's arrogance were unfolding faster than even I expected. They hadn't just replaced me, they destabilized the entire strategic framework I'd built, and the industry was already reacting. I finally called Randall back. Jada. He answered immediately, voice warm but laced with concern. I heard you left Echelon. That's one way to put it. Well? He exhaled. I'd like to hear the other way. Your way. Because we've been noticing inconsistencies since last quarter. And frankly, I trust your read more than Gerald's. My grip on the phone tightened. What inconsistencies? He told me everything. Warehouse delays, misrouted shipments, customer satisfaction dips. All recent, all after Elena's influence increased. Let me guess. I said, Gerald told you it was temporary. He told me it was transitional. Randall replied, But Jada, transitions aren't supposed to look like chaos. I leaned against the railing, the river shimmering below. Randall, I can give you insight, I said carefully. But it would be as an independent consultant. That's exactly what I'm asking for. He said, Meet me tomorrow morning. I want your honest assessment of Echelon's current leadership and the renewal process. A slow, steady fire lit inside my chest. This wasn't vengeance. This was validation. When the call ended, I looked north toward the building where 19 years of my life still lingered in every workflow, every strategy, every system. Echelon wasn't collapsing because I left. It was collapsing because I held it up. And they never noticed until the weight was gone. And tomorrow, the people with the most power in the industry would finally see it too. And this is where things get weird. The next morning arrived with a heaviness that felt almost ceremonial, as if the universe were pausing to acknowledge that something irreversible was about to begin. I arrived at the Nolan headquarters 10 minutes early. A habit 19 years at Echelon had drilled into me. The building was a testament to old-school logistics power brick, steel, broad windows overlooking the harbor. No glitter, no arrogance, just stability. Inside, Randall Nolan was waiting for me in a sunlit conference room. He wasn't a man easily rattled. But today, he looked unsettled. Jada. He shook my hand with both of his. Thank you for coming. Of course. I said. You sounded concerned. I am. He gestured for me to sit. Echelon has been slipping, quietly, but measurably, and the explanations we've been given don't add up. I folded my hands. Tell me everything. Randall slid a stack of reports toward me. Shipment delays increasing by 27%. Inventory inconsistencies across 3 regional hubs. Misformatted compliance paperwork. And worst of all, incorrect data projections for next quarter. I scanned them quickly. Who prepared these? I asked. Though I already knew. Elena, he confirmed. My jaw clenched. These aren't mistakes. These are misunderstandings of the entire operational structure. Randall leaned forward. That's why I wanted you here. I know the difference between a system failing and a leader failing. And this. He tapped the pages. Is leadership failure? My pulse steadied with a cold clarity. You want an honest review of Echelon's readiness for renewal. I want the truth, he said. Not the version Gerald thinks I want to hear. I nodded. Then you'll get exactly that. For the next hour. We walked through every report line by line. I explained how the routing architecture functioned, how forecasting models were supposed to be interpreted, how Elena's adjustments contradicted fundamental logistics logic. Randall's expression shifted from concern to disbelief to frustration. This is negligence, he muttered. And Gerald passed this off as a temporary adjustment. I met his eyes. Gerald removed the person who built the system. Now the system is showing him what it looks like without its architect. Silence settled in the room like a verdict. Finally, Randall said. Jada, we'll proceed with a full evaluation. I want a written analysis from you, independent, unfiltered. After that, we'll determine next steps. I nodded. You'll have it within 72 hours. As I stood to leave, Randall hesitated. One more thing. I paused at the door. If Gerald tries to interfere, you let me know. I don't tolerate manipulation. The implications hit me like a shift in gravity. He wasn't just wary of Echelon. He was preparing for the possibility of replacing them, walking out of the Nolan building. A strange sensation settled over me, not triumph, not revenge, but recognition. The industry wasn't falling apart. It was realigning, and for the first time in 19 years, it was aligning around me. I spent the next 3 days working almost non-stop. My dining table became a war room, papers spread out like battle maps. my laptop glowing with spreadsheets and vendor logs, coffee cups marking every hour I refused to sleep. By the end, I had compiled a 76-page independent evaluation of Echelon's operational stability. It wasn't vindictive. It wasn't exaggerated. It was simply the truth. And the truth was devastating. Routing models misaligned, forecasting algorithms overwritten, warehouse protocols tampered with, compliance issues overlooked, some severe enough to trigger federal audits. All under Elena's watch. I emailed the finished evaluation to Randall at 4:32 a.m. Then sat in the dim light of my apartment, the quiet pressing against my ribs like a weight I wasn't sure how to name. Relief, sadness. Fury, maybe all three, at 8:17. My phone rang. Randall didn't bother with pleasantries. "Jada," he said, "I read your report, twice, and it confirms everything I suspected and more." His voice hardened. "This goes beyond incompetence. Gerald deliberately hid structural failures from us. Some of these issues have been building for months." I exhaled, tension unfurling from my shoulders. "What do you need from me next a meeting?" he said. "Tomorrow. My partners want to hear your assessment directly. After that, we make our decision. A decision. $42 million of annual contracts hung on those two words. Before I could respond, another call beeped through Owen Hale. I switched lines. "Jada," he whispered urgently. "You need to know what's happening here." My grip tightened. "What now?" The board confronted Gerald this morning. "They've seen early indicators of performance decline." Elena tried to blame transition turbulence, but he exhaled shakily. "They asked specifically why you weren't included in the final Ridgeway briefing." Gerald panicked. Of course he did. His power had always depended on everyone not asking questions. "Owen," I said carefully. "How bad is it? Bad enough that Gerald called an emergency executive session for tonight?" A pause. "He wants to present a revised version of the narrative. One that frames you as refusing cooperation." There it was, the last, desperate attempt to rewrite history. I felt something inside me steady cold. Unshakable. "Let him try," I said. Owen hesitated. "Jada, I know you're done with Echelon, but this company won't survive another quarter like this. People are scared." I softened. "You didn't fail." "Owen, they failed you too." Silence. Then a quiet. Broken. "Thank you." When the call ended, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "Gerald is planning to discredit your report. Thought you should know. Someone inside Echelon was warning me, again. The walls were cracking from the inside out. And tomorrow, when I walked into that room at Nolan headquarters, the entire industry would see the truth. Echelon hadn't just fired the wrong person. They'd fired the person holding them together. The next morning, I dressed with deliberate calm navy blazer, crisp white blouse, hair pinned back. Not corporate armor, not anymore. But something different presence. A statement without raising my voice. The Nolan headquarters conference room was full when I walked in. Not just Randall, but his partners. 2 senior directors. And the head of compliance. Conversations halted. Eyes lifted. Expressions sharpened with curiosity. Randall stood. "Jada, thank you for coming." I nodded and took my seat at the far end of the table, positioned where a strategist sits. Not a subordinate. "We've reviewed your evaluation," Randall began. "But we want to hear your perspective directly." I opened my folder calmly. "Then I'll give you exactly what you deserve: clarity." I walked them through the failures point by point. Not dramatic, not emotional, just precise, surgical. The way a spine surgeon explains why a body can no longer stand upright. Every misalignment in Echelon's routing model. Every compliance risk. Every operational blind spot Elena had amplified. Every manipulation Gerald used to hide the decline. As I spoke, the room shifted from mild concern to sharp unease to complete, silent focus. By the time I reached the final page of my notes, The head of compliance looked physically ill. Randall leaned forward. Jada, do you believe Echelon can recover a question loaded like a chambered bullet? I held his gaze. Not under its current leadership. Silence dropped like a curtain. And if we stayed with them, one partner asked. Then, I said evenly, you would be paying $42 million a year for instability, mismanagement, and eventual regulatory scrutiny. Another partner scribbled something quickly. A woman near the end of the table shook her head slowly, absorbing the implication. Finally, Randall exhaled. Thank you. Jada. That was more illuminating than we expected. The meeting adjourned with hushed voices and tense expressions. People drifted out in small groups, murmuring among themselves. As I gathered my materials, Randall remained behind. Walk with me, he said. We moved down a quiet hallway lined with old shipping photos, founders loading crates, first-generation trucks. The company's history frozen in grainy black and white. Randall stopped by a large window overlooking the harbor. I wanted to tell you before the committee finalizes anything, he said, voice low. Your honesty today. It mattered. I studied him. What are you leaning toward? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, Echelon forgot something important. Stability comes from people, not logos. A message without saying the words. Expect a call from us soon, he added. And Jada, whatever happens next. You didn't lose today. I stepped out of the building, feeling the opposite of how I had felt leaving Echelon lighter. Anchored. Purposeful. But before I could reach my car, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Jada. A shaken voice said, It's Owen. My chest tightened. What happened? His voice trembled. Gerald knows you met with the Nolans, and he's furious. He's calling another emergency session tonight. Jada. He's preparing to accuse you of breach of confidentiality. A cold, focused calm spread through me. Because I had documented everything. Because I had followed every rule. Because I knew this moment would come. Owen, I said quietly. Let him try. There was a long silence. Then he whispered, Jada. You don't understand. Gerald's losing control. And tonight, he's going to make his biggest mistake yet. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, my apartment felt unnervingly quiet, almost expectant. I sat at my small kitchen table, laptop open, waiting. For what? Exactly. I wasn't sure. Maybe for the inevitable. It came at 7:41 p.m. My phone rang. Owen again this time, breathless. Jada, it's happening. What did he do? The board confronted Gerald with your evaluation. He tried to claim you violated confidentiality by meeting with the Nolans, but then someone asked the question he wasn't prepared for. I straightened. Which question? Why was Jada's report more accurate than anything presented internally in the last 3 months? Owen whispered. He didn't have an answer. I let out a slow breath. He panicked. Owen continued, raised his voice, blamed the staff, blamed Elna, blamed transitional turbulence. The board didn't buy any of it. Of course they didn't. Facts don't bend, not even for CEOs trying to outrun their own incompetence. What now? I asked. He called for a vote of support. Owen said. No one raised their hand, not one person. Jada! Silence expanded between us. Then Owen added, voice trembling with relief. They've asked Gerald to resign. Effective immediately. Elena too. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of the words settle, not triumphant, not vindictive, just complete. What about the Nolan contract? I asked. Owen hesitated. You should check your email. When the call ended, I opened my inbox. A new message. Subject line. We've made our decision. From Randall. My pulse thundered. I clicked it. And as I read the first sentence, a slow, inevitable smile formed. Everything that followed the fall of Echelon, the rise of North Star. My future began with those 10 quiet words. We have chosen to proceed with you. Sometimes a closed door is not the end, but an invitation to step onto a more worthy path. How do you feel after listening to my story, and where are you listening from? Please comment and share if the story touches you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to accompany me. See you in the next videos, where we continue to write stronger journeys.